Hi, it's Dan Harlan here with Nicholas Lawrence to thank you so much for purchasing our collaboration, HoverCard Plus. Now, if you are familiar with HoverCard, the original one, which I introduced many, many years ago, this is an improvement in method and functionality and the ability to do lots of other things with it. It gives you a lot more control, a lot more possibilities. So the first thing that we will talk about is the basic gimmick. The gimmick itself hasn't changed from the original one, but Nicholas and I have both added our own touches to it. So let's take a quick look at it here. This is the gimmick itself is the plastic rectangle here. That's what causes all of the floating action to happen. So basically you've got a box that's open on the top and the bottom so that the sides can easily move like that. What it creates is what's known as a parallel hinge, so that the floating part stays parallel to the attachment throughout the entire rotation of the floating. Now, in the original version of HoverCard, out here was an entire card, and the back part of the gimmick was attached to the base. In this version, we have a base that is magnetic. So there's a magnetic attachment, and the card then floats in a very, very similar way to the original one. So that magnetic idea was something that I talked to Nicholas about. I brought it to him. It's the way that I originally wanted this gimmick to be. When I first envisioned it many, many years ago, I actually made myself a deck of cards that had a pretty thick magnet. It was about a quarter of the deck. And that was the attachment, and that's the way that I performed it. The problem was you had to reserve a block of cards out of your deck just to perform the floating effect. So, many, many years went by, and magnets have become much, much thinner and much stronger. So now is the time to go back to doing that. But then after I brought you the idea of the magnetic attachment, then you had some contributions to it. So I want you to tell everybody what you then did with it.
Well, starting from what you seen Dan talking about here, the detachableness, which was great, but what I thought would be even better is if it could be any card signed, so they can watch your signature, levitate, and go right back down and hand it out immediately. I just felt that those were very necessary for it to be a true plus.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I designed here. So between the two of us, we have perfection.
We've gotten everything that everybody ever asked for in the HoverCard gimmick, because what Nicholas did was he just naturally gravitated toward what everybody always was asking me about. Can you do it with a signed card? Can you give the card away as a souvenir at the end to show that it's normal? Can you do it with any deck of cards? And we'll get into that and show you how you can use any deck of cards to do it as well. So the first step was to take away the single card from the front and instead miniaturize the gimmick so that it could be attached to any card by using that double stick tape. So let's just go about the basic handling, which really I shouldn't say it's the basic. This is the entire handling, what you would typically do with it if you want to use all of the functionality of it. All right, so Nicholas, why don't you show everybody the handling for what we're going to be basically calling the basic routine that has all the functionality, but it's the way that they would do it if they're going to have a card signed and make that card float. Yep.
All right, so very simple. You just have them select any card.
Yep, sure. Okay.
Go ahead and just sign the card.
Got my marker right here. Okay, there you go.
Take the card back, let it dry, place it on top of the pack, just like this. Show there's nothing inside the hands. And basically, you just allow the card just to slowly float off the deck. Just like the original. But this is where it gets a little bit different, when you can just pluck the card right out of the air.
Yeah.
Show both sides of the card, and then just place it right back into the air and allow it just to slowly float back down to the pack. Just like that. And then, of course, you can just hand that right out.
Yeah, and that's it, and they can examine the whole thing. So, that's really just a great addition to it in every possible way. A card that they've already handled. Basically, they've examined it by handling it, stays in view the whole time, floats, and then is given back to them. So go over where everything starts out, show everybody how they get into the position for it.
All right, so here's the gimmick, the two-piece gimmick. You're just going to have this at the bottom of the deck. Now, naturally, having it inside the case or inside your pocket, you're going to come out and the tape that's on there is going to stick to this bottom card. I've been using this one, so it's not as tacky, but you'll learn how to use it as you go on.
Yeah,
So
and it doesn't need to have full stickiness. As a
really
matter of fact, first time you put double stick tape
You
on
really
something
don't.
like this, you want to touch it a few times to
Yeah.
lower that tack. If you've ever worked with it, you know exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
I will just interject one thing
sure.
here that I've found that if you're going to use this on the bottom of the cards, and it's always going to be like that, there's a great thing that you can do, and that is that you take your joker and you put a joker on the bottom. And I know I saw them in here. So you would take your joker, you put it on the bottom, but what you get is the backing that you would have on any kind of stickers, whether they're shipping labels or anything like that.
good.
Yeah, it's the backing for it. You cut out a very small piece of that that's just bigger than the piece of tape that you're going to use, and you glue that into the center of the joker. So obviously there will be something there if people see it, but they're not going to see that. They're not going to see the gimmick. But that actually has the release on it, so it doesn't matter how sticky your tape
Right.
is, it will never stick to the bottom card. And then when you're ready to clean everything up, all you have to do is get rid of the joker and the gimmick
Oh, that's
at the same time.
perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a great aid. If you are having trouble with it, that is an awesome aid
Yeah,
for that. Yeah. But so if you aren't using that, like I said, naturally it might already stick to the gimmick. So what I like to do is even before you do the trick, just kind of go like this and riffle up the pack of the cards, and it'll just naturally separate. Once it separate, I just keep a little break, just like that, and then just have them
And they
take
can
a card.
pick any card from anywhere.
Once they're signing the card, this gives you the slight misdirection, though it's not really needed. You're just going to cut this card to the top. Now you can either do that, or you can just start cutting through the cards
Sure.
like this. And then whenever you're ready, just swing cut the gimmick to the top.
Yep.
From here, what I like to do is just take my thumb and place it on the top of the gimmick as you're taking back the
Okay.
card. Just like this, and you just kind of wrist kill, or even just let your hand just relax on the side, right? From here, you're going to do is take the card, place it on top of the pack. Now, either with the finger, like this, as you see I'm doing here, just pressing, that's going to allow the card to stick to the gimmick while you're showing the hands clean. Or, let's say you've already been performing this 10 times throughout the night, it's losing its stickiness. I like to place my thumb on top, give it a nice squeeze, okay? Once you're here, it really is so simple. As long as you know that the magnets are right here, okay, real close to your body,
Yeah.
and now on the other side, all you do is slowly tip your hand forward, but you don't want to be perfectly parallel like this. I like to actually tip it down just a little bit.
Right. I'll talk a little bit more about that
Yeah.
when I show you the
You know much
technique
more
for
about
it.
it, sure. Many years of experience.
Yeah.
But once I'm here in this position, what I like to do is just hold a normal mechanics grip, like that, slight angle down, and just start to tip it forward. Okay, you never really want it to jump out like that, but once it does start to go, very slowly, like this, and it gets to the desired lift that you like, all you're going to be doing here is gripping the gimmick and the card just like that. And
Now
just
that
plucking
noise
it.
was
Oh, that
you.
was me, by the way. That was not the
Don't
gimmick.
make that noise
Yes.
when you do it.
I don't know why I do that. I like to use sound effects when I do magic, but just to explain to you guys, that's the motion. It's just a plucking of it right off. So once it gets to here, you're just going to pluck it. I like to then rotate my wrist, just kind of show the deck nice and fair. Come up and basically rotate this around. I'm going to show you step by step how to do this.
Yeah,
What you're doing is
let's
just
see that from the
cleanly
back.
showing
Yeah.
the back of the card. So what you're doing is from here, you're going to then rotate your finger around to here.
Turn a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. So from here, you're just going to go ahead and rotate the finger around like this, releasing the thumb. So basically, these two fingers are holding the gimmick and the card, and your thumb is now going to go to the front as you rotate this around like this. So now you can see your finger covers everything, right? Once you're here, you can either continue to rotate around or go back. Either way, but you're now in this position. So now what you have to do is reclip like this. This seems like a lot, but this goes by very fast as you see me just do it. Now you can actually use your thumb to get the gimmick to pop back up, get back into position, just as you plucked it out of the air. So now you can place it back into the air. Just an important tip here, we are dealing with magnets, so they do make sound, but you can eliminate that completely by just adding a little bit of tension to this. You don't want it flopping in the wind, just a little bit of tension, so that way you can just slowly make contact and let it go. Just like that. So now that it's in the middle of the air, all you're going to do is reverse the process and just basically kind of rocking your wrist downward, just like this. It allows it just to go slowly back to the pack. From here, I just give it a little spread, just showing it very fair, very clean. Then what you're going to do is just kind of grip the card like this, right? Very slowly, lift it up, and hand it out.
Yeah, now when you're doing that, when you're doing the peeling off, let's say you're working with kind of new tape that's a little stickier,
Yeah.
do you have to be careful to try to get in between the card and the gimmick just to kind of hold the gimmick in place
You
at all?
don't actually have to, like with normal 2 cards,
Right.
but because it's so small, you really can't do that. But what you want to do is just kind of, if it's really sticky, just very slowly peel it up.
Right.
Like that.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Good.
But
Good.
with my experience, it hasn't been very loud at all. So in any performing atmosphere, you should be fine.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah. Now, that I think is absolutely fantastic as the basic routine of it. It gets you both in and out of it very nicely. It puts all of the focus on that floating card and on the signed card. So there's plenty of opportunity for you then to return that gimmick to the bottom. Everybody's looking over there. It's a simple matter for you to get it back down to the bottom of the deck like that, so you look clean again. What I like to do in that case is not to run, you know,
sure.
Because nobody is chasing the deck. They're looking at the card. They don't think there's anything special about the deck. I would just turn to somebody else and start going into a trick before I'd even think about ditching that gimmick. I do it more on the offbeat then.
100%.
If I have to go back to my pocket for the pen so that they can now sign a card, it's better than trying to get rid of it quickly. Because if you try to get rid of it too quickly, that's exactly when they're looking for it.
Right.
If you act like it's not there, it's not there. Now, you did have a really nice touch. This is the thing that I wanted to talk about, how this gives you so much more flexibility. You had a really nice touch by just adding 1 extra card.
Yes.
So show everybody that, and then I'll talk a little bit more
Great.
about other things.
All right, so everything, the handling is completely the same, but the only difference here is because this is magnetic, you can actually place a card, or even 2 cards, in between the gimmick and its base. But we'll just use 1 card just for an example. So if this is all set up here, and they've just signed their card, so here it is, exact same thing, you're going to return it back to the deck, but this time, which is really cool, once you get very comfortable with the gimmick, once you start to get it to levitate, right, so here we go, it's a little crooked, that's just because my tape is not as sticky, but once it's floating, you know, that does have a nice little touch. All you can do, or what you can do now, is you can actually remove a card from underneath.
It just looks so
Right? So it makes it look
so
extra
good.
impossible.
Yeah.
And then what I like to do is take this card as like a little fan and just allow it to go back down. Now, of course, you can do the detach before or after you do that.
Yeah.
Make this a multi-phase routine. But that's just a really nice touch that just solidifies the illusion that there's nothing behind it. It's truly floating.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely love that. And that is what alludes, at least, to what I was talking about earlier, where you can do this with any deck of cards now, which I
Yes.
think is so fantastic. So the basic idea, if you haven't figured it out yet, is that since you have a base and a gimmick, all you have to do is put whatever deck of cards you're using, you just attach that back above this back, because the magnet will still work through them. So that's it to change out your gimmick for one that matches any deck of cards at all. And you can do it permanently if you want to, if you know you're always going to use that same deck, or you can use double stick tape here as well. You put on a different back, and now you've got a deck that all has different backs. You've changed the base over. Now this part you won't have to worry about it as much, because obviously they're not going to see that while you're necktying it. If your deck is drastically different from this, if you are using, you know, for example, if you use a blue deck and you've got a red gimmick like this, you can also replace that part and then put another piece of stickiness on it. You've got to be aware that every time you add some weight to this gimmick, it does affect a little bit how much it's going to come out, how it's going to float. More weight swings out more quickly, less weight slowly. But it just makes it now possible so that you can customize it to your own needs, which I think is just so fantastic.
It really is.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. So that adds all that functionality to it, which I think is so fantastic. Now, in addition to that, let's say that you're a little bit concerned about using the gimmick in this way and attaching and detaching the card. So it is possible for you to go back to a more standard presentation that I used with the original introduction of HoverCard while you work your way up to working with a signed card. And it's pretty simple to explain it to you. You're going to need a duplicate card. So I don't think we have 2 jokers in here, But what I'm going to do is, oh, good, we have 2 jokers. So it's going to be easier for you to understand this so that you know which one is which card, but you would use exact duplicates for this. And one of them you're going to permanently attach to this. So you would use just stronger double stick tape. So that's going to be your floating card, and you stick it on to there. Now you're going to take that gimmick with the card stuck in place and put it on the bottom of the deck turned the opposite way. Then, instead of having somebody select a card and sign it, you just introduce that you've got, this special card. You'd like them to take a look at it. They examine that card, and you place it on the top of the deck like this. Then as your hand comes over to square the deck, you turn the whole thing over as you get into position. Now, the position that I use for the floating is a little bit different. I think of this as a stage effect done in miniature. So what I do is I hold this pose, which I think of as the toothpaste commercial pose. So you've got the deck of cards held like the toothpaste here up near your face, and you're only holding it at those extreme corners. To get into that position is actually pretty easy to do. So if you rotate the whole deck and hold it here so that the magnets are up near your thumb, then turn the deck over like this, now you're in position. So you show this card, you square and bring it up into this position. Then you're going to slide your thumb and middle and index finger down to here. That card's now loose. You just rotate the whole thing around so it gets up into this position. The reason I like to do this is because sometimes when you're performing hover card, you have to get the audience into the right place. This does have angles like a stage illusion. The angles are pretty good. They're about 120 degrees from the attachment to the outside because it is going across the corners, the extreme diagonals of the card. But if you're too close to the audience, they might try to peek around the sides. So what you want to do is you want to get everybody to stay in one place, and then you take a step back and you check the air currents, and you say, as long as no one moves, I think this will work. And at least that's what I say. Now, you already get it to start floating. It's already starting to detach from this. And this is the thing I wanted to talk about, how you can really control the floating of it. If you get into a position where you're holding the deck and the card is already released, then simply by tilting it forward, making sure that the gimmick itself is angling downward, you simply tilt the deck forward like this, that releases the card. So it can only go out as far as the arm can swing. If it's too horizontal and you tilted it forward, it would pop all the way out quickly. So if you have it more vertical like this and you tilt it forward, then by rotating your hand without adding any other tilt to it, by rotating your hand, that's what causes it to float further. So it's this rotation, and you can do that at whatever speed you want to. But if you watch it with this hand in place, you tilt forward, it comes off, and then it floats over, closer and closer and closer. And then this is the way that I like to detach it, is to grab it as it's floating and continue to pull it away from the deck like that. That puts the gimmick into that position. I throw my index finger over it, I spin it around like this. So it's the same thing, spin it around like that. The less focus on the back of this card, the better. Then I get my thumb under there and I push these magnets out. Now the way that I reattach it, you can just come straight in. As long as you've got a lot of tension on this, you can go straight in and it won't make any noise at all. But what I like to do is I like to go past the deck and rub the magnets until they attach like this, and then pull the card down to the corner. So it looks like this. So it looks like you're simply placing the card onto the corner of the deck, and it stays there. Then it floats back, and all you're doing is tilting your hand back opposite direction until it gets vertical. You tilt all the way around, and then as you square the cards, you turn them over and deal off that single card, and that puts the gimmick back onto the bottom. The card can be examined. Obviously, can't be signed. I love the addition of being able to sign it. That I think is the best thing. So if you get worked up to the point where you can do all of the other moves with necktying the deck and getting it attached and detaching it, you're better off doing the signed version. But in the meantime, you can also go back to the standard
Great way
handling.
to start, though,
Yeah.
just to get comfortable.
Get comfortable with the
100%.
floating. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
It's the best part of the trick is the floating. But all of the other parts, being able to detach it, being able to have it signed, and being able to do it with any deck of cards, are really great additions to this. Now, there's one other thing that I was playing around with earlier today, because now that we have this, we have a modular gimmick, which I think is absolutely great, because you can take this, you can take the base, you can take the gimmick, you can take either piece and use them separately. So if you have other magnets, you can attach this to something else, use it to float something else. So what I was playing with today is this. All you have to do is borrow a dollar bill from somebody. And if you can justify it using the money with the cards, then you get into that position and attach the dollar bill. And I'm going to attach it so it's going to float face up. You attach it in the same position that you would a card. Make sure you go up to that corner all the way, and then press it. Then get into the same position that you would want to. Now I'm going to float it down here just so you can get a feel for it. And it will float away from the deck in the same way. And it looks just fantastic because it's no longer associated with the cards, and then you can pluck it out of the air. The same idea. Put the cards down and detach that gimmick. And that can be palmed away, and now you've got the ability to float lots of different objects.
Lots of things.
You could apply it to money, credit cards, let your imagination run wild and try to figure out how you want to use it.
You could even put this base inside of your wallet if it's thin enough.
Yeah.
And just do the bill right on your wallet.
Right on your wallet.
Another great idea that's exactly the same, really, that our friend Brandon Gerald came up with is you could put the cards inside of the box and levitate the card off of the box.
Yeah, sure.
And why I like that is it's even cleaner because there's only two things to look at, the box and the card. And it really just gives you all the time in the world to get rid of that small little gimmick, which we all know we can just finger palm with ease.
Now there was another, and this will be the last thing we tell you, and then you're off and running to have some fun with your gimmick. There was one other cleanup that I really, really loved. There was one thing that I wanted to talk about the base really quickly. If you happen to lose the magnets on the base, it's always going to be in the lower right corner, so you only have a couple of places to check. So it's pretty simple to just check those places until it reattaches itself. Just something so that you can keep it in mind what to do with it. But there was the other cleanup, which was done with the sign card that I really, really love.
The spread, right?
The spread,
Yeah.
and if you
Sure,
will
sure.
show that, this is for anybody that is looking to do it with a little less move at the end and make the deck look completely clean.
Sure. Once you've already done the levitation and it's come back down, what's really cool is you don't actually have to separate it off the gimmick in that moment. You can actually take your time with it, which is pretty cool. You can actually just take the card and the detachable gimmick off as one, just like this. So now you can actually just kind of show everything one more time. And as you come back to the deck, all you're going to do is take the gimmick card, the base, and just slide it between the other gimmick. So in real speed, it would just look like this. Just take off the card, show both sides, and just start counting through the cards like this. But what you're doing is just taking this gimmick and loading it right underneath the actual base. So that way, this card is completely clean. You can just hand this out very smoothly.
Right. Once that squares under the
once
base,
it's
the
squared.
magnets reattach on the opposite side.
Yep, now you can just kind of count through the cards and just very cleanly hand out that card, just like that.
Yeah. And I love that. Really, any way to clean that up, because again, all the heat's going to be on that card and not on the deck, whichever way feels more comfortable for you. So I just want to thank Nicholas for contributing to this, because it's finally the vision that I had many, many years ago and now realized so that you can enjoy it. And I hope your audiences love it as much as we do.
Sure.
Thanks, Nicholas.